My precious.
In my left hand, I have my favourite ratchet spanners. Now these range from 8mm up to 19mm, at which point I started running out of hand space and they started getting heavy. In my other hand, however, I have something called a Torx wrench, or a Torx spanner. Now I'll put a link in the description below should you be interested in getting one. And this ranges from 8mm to 22mm, all in one easy peasy little spanner. So have we found the one spanner to rule them all? Let's find out. So first impressions, tools in hand, they don't feel too bad. It feels quite lightweight for a spanner, relatively. I mean, it's quite thin. When you pick up a spanner, it feels like a chunk of steel. Quite nice if you like that sort of thing. Whereas this doesn't so much. It's quite thin and it feels relatively lightweight in comparison. And that's a good thing, I guess, if you're using it as an emergency spanner for a car. You don't have to fill in the car full of lots of heavy tools anyway. However, if we put it in line, so we have a selection of spanners here, ranging from the little 8 at this side up to a big 24. Lengthwise, it kind of fits in line as a 22mm spanner would do, as it goes up to 22mm. And that's alright if you're undoing 22mm nuts and bolts, but I imagine that's relatively rare, certainly as an emergency tool. So if you're going to be undoing an 8, for example, it's quite a size difference there, don't you think? And if you're going to be swinging on an 8mm nut or bolt, if you're not careful, you're going to be leaving heads and stripping threads quite easily. And that's assuming that you can actually get that in the engine bay or wherever you need it to get to. So you're driving along and all of a sudden there's a problem with the engine. Turns out you've got a loose inlet manifold. It happens, it's happened to me a few times, but not to worry, you have your emergency #1, the ultimate spanner to beat all other spanners to hand. So you go and grab it and you go, I'm just going to tighten up this inlet manifold, and yeah, that's not happening, is it? And the wall on the side of the spanner is about a mile thick, so you're not even going to get close to anything like this at all. And even if you could get on the nut or the bolt, how are you going to turn it? It's the wrong shape. Now, I'll get a piece of paper just to show you how bad this actually gets. So, for argument's sake, let's say the only tools we've got to fix this breakdown are spanners. Now, if you were lucky, you've got a thin wall ring spanner. And you put it on your nut, which should be about there. And you only kind of need that much turn. You can take it off, you can turn it around, and it makes kind of tightening the nut up, or the bolt up, relatively easily. In terms of the amount of space it takes to swing the spanner, it's just basically that green footprint there. And in terms of how close to the actual manifold you can get, well, it's no issue at all. So it's close to the actual nut or the bolt that you're tightening or loosening. So you haven't got your ring spanner, so you're going to have to use a bog standard spanner. The ratchet end's far too fat for this job, so we're going to go with the open end. And then we're going to tighten it up. So we've got an open end, so it's not going to crash on the actual manifold. And basically to turn it 1/6 of a turn, because we haven't got the smaller degrees that you do with the open-ended, you have to turn it by that much for 1/6 of a turn. So your footprint is twice the size. Obviously you've got to go twice the distance rather than a 1/12, you've got a 1/6 to go. So your footprint's bigger, but it's not too bad I guess in the engine bay. And you can get close up to the manifold. Again, you've got no issues really. Oops, on there. No issues really in terms of contact. Mega tool. The first thing is, when you put it on there, it's not exactly nice. It's kind of clunky to get on. Oh yeah, check out the 22mm bad boy. So I'm glad that I've got a V8 with a massive engine bay, which I don't have. If you have, you might be alright, I guess. Look at the footprint, just a turn a 1/6. I couldn't even get it on the paper. It goes way off the paper. So it's a massive area. You need space in the engine bay just to be able to turn your nut a 1/6 of a turn because it's so long basically. And the other issue is, you put it on there, and because of the design of the end here, that circle there, which is the distance that the end of the spanner sticks out by, is 6 centimetres. That means you have to be a minimum, your nut or your bolt, whatever you're loosening or tightening, has to be a minimum of 3 centimetres away from the edge of anything. Otherwise you can't turn it anyway, it'll just crash. So I'm not sure, as an emergency breakdown, fix things in the engines kind of tool, it's the right one for the job. So what's it like to use? So what we've got here is a M8 stainless brand new bolt, and this is a non-stainless second hand, but as far as I can see, good condition bolt. Basically the same thing, but one's new and one's stainless and one's used and not stainless. And I found that it goes onto the stainless one relatively easily. And being the last slot on this side of the spanner, being the 13mm, you're going to get good traction on that. So I don't see any issues with actually grabbing onto a 13 and tightening it as tight as you want it. You can see you've got most of the faces in contact. A little bit sticky. However, on the used one, it doesn't want to go all the way on, and it's just not nice. So it could be some tools do take a bit of bedding in, I guess. But out of the bag, unless your nuts and bolts are brand new, which, let's face it, most of them aren't, it's a little bit sticky and near to use, at least on the 13. So let's have a go with the 10, see what happens there. So the 10mm is on the other end of the spanner, this end, and you kind of have to put it on and kind of give it a little bit of a pull as you're using it to turn. But I don't know if you can see there, it doesn't really grab much of the face of the bolt. Can you see that? So I can't imagine you being able to do very much with it before it's either slips or strips. So we're going to find out. I'm going to keep tightening this bad boy. Either the thread's going to go, there's 6mm thread in there, the header's going to slip, or it's going to shear off. Whoop! There we go. There is nothing I can do to turn that any harder. Oh, I got it, we got it, I got it! So you basically have to really force it down into the grooves, or it kind of pops off. And I think the threads have gone. So you can get some leverage on it. It's just not nice to use. I don't think it's nice to use as a spanner. This time I'm using the flip side, the big end of the spanner, and it's going onto a 15mm head of an M10 bolt. Now you can probably see along the edge here, so on the back edge it basically sits flat against one of the edges, but on the front edge it's literally on one of the tiny little notches. There's not a lot of steel up against that corner. Now with a bigger bolt it seems easier to use. See, it kind of latches on easier. I've got to be honest with you, it's actually letting me put quite a bit of torque through that, because I'm giving that some proper man wang. So despite the fact that the spanner doesn't actually locate on much of the head, it's literally just on the corners, we actually managed to strip the M10 thread before the head rounded off, or before it slipped. If you actually look at the side of the head, you can just see there, look, where it kind of digs in, just ahead of each corner. Let's say the head didn't fail, it was the thread that went first. Let's try it with the tensile bolt. And this one I believe is 17mm head. Again, it's M10 underneath. This one's not as easy to grab onto, it seems to slip on there. So again, on this one, look, it's kind of not quite getting the entire face, and then it's latching on that little bit of bolt there, so it doesn't seem to be quite so good on this size, but latching on, which is interesting, and you can feel that in the way it actually connects. It jumps more. It's stuck now. Yeah. So we're not going to strip the thread on that one. It's just, you know. I'm not sure if I've damaged the spanner or have I damaged the head. Yeah. So not so impressive with the 17. So it does seem to vary depending on whereabouts on the actual spanner the nut or the bolt goes as to how well it performs. So for me, as a car guy, let's consider some alternatives. What might I have in the breakdown bag? Well, old-fashioned style adjustable wrench. I personally don't like them. I think they're big and they're clunky. They tend to slip on nuts when I put them on the nuts, and I just don't like using them at all, to be honest with you. So I'm getting rid of that. I wouldn't carry it. It's too big and clunky anyway. So you've got the Stilsons or Mull grips. I think they're fantastic. They're also fantastic at rounding off nuts and bolts and knackering the edges. Good folding thing still, but not obviously for undoing anything. Square jawed gas pliers, I guess they are. They're actually pretty good for going onto nuts and holding tight, but again, you wouldn't use one in the car. It's too big and plain clunky. This is an Amtec adjustable wrench. Now I know I said I don't like them, but I love this one. I love this one so much I actually own 3. And as you can tell, this one's been well used. I modified one to get into tight gaps on the angle grinders and stuff, and say the other one's in the breakdown bag. So these are, I think, fantastic, and I have linked to it down the description below if you're interested in getting one. Again, the cheapest chips, they're actually about the same price as the Torx spanner, funnily enough. And it just opens up massively. It's easy to use. It's relatively not intrusive in terms of its size at the end look, and it's not massively long. It's just a handle size length. So as far as adjustables go, I think these are absolutely fantastic, and it's worth having one in the breakdown bag. But ultimately, that's what I carry. These are actually out of my breakdown bag. 13, 10, 13, 13, 17. I should have a 15 here somewhere. A 10. And basically, because I'm a Beetle guy, you can take a Beetle apart with that. That's all you really need for the kind of things I'm thinking it's for. So, what's the point? Have I missed something? I'm going to do a Jeremy Clarkson and go, it's not actually that bad after all. It's really, really good. Well, I'm going to tell you what it's actually for, because so far, I've been missing the point. There's people probably watching this going, why did he try and sell me a spanner by linking to it below? That doesn't work. And he's proven it doesn't work in his own video. And it didn't really work very well. Certainly as a spanner, it's not great. In my opinion, as a spanner, it's not good. Well, that's because it's not really a spanner, and I've tested it for the wrong thing. In fact, it's not even for me, because I'm a very fortunate person. It's not even possibly for you. What this is for the guy who's got his first car, he's got his first set of spanners, and he tries to undo a nut or a bolt. Nut and bolt, brand new spanner. If he's lucky, it's a ratchet one. And he's trying to undo it, and it spins. And how do you stop something spinning if you've only got one 17mm spanner? That's how. And it's easy too. It's really easy, because all you have to do is that. You just hang it on, pull, and all of a sudden the nut or the bolt that once span is now held firm. That's what it's for. And it's got a long handle on it too. That's not a hindrance, because it was never designed to be in an engine bay and doing little nuts and bolts. That's just daft. Proven that doesn't work. It's got a long handle on it, so usually when you're trying to get something that's spinning, it's up under the car somewhere, and you can't reach it easily, or you can't reach to both sides of it. Well, now you've got a long handle. Drop it on from a distance and hold tight, and it doesn't spin. So this isn't the spanner or the wrench to beat all of the spanners and wrenches. It's a spanner or a wrench that complements all spanners and wrenches for people who don't have 2 of everything. Cheers guys, take care.